Hello everyone, Joe here. You know that we are near at the end of the year, and I've been putting some PC RPG games lists on my channel. I know it sucks to watch a lot of game list videos just to search what is the best game that you have to play. Well, don't be sad my friend, because now I'm going to tell you 25 best PC RPG games of all time that is already updated with 2021 games as well. You may agree or disagree with my list, but hey, that's what makes it interesting, right? Alright, let's get started. Despite the lackluster stories that pull you through the world, Octopath thrives on its character progression and the temptations of high-level challenges and rewards. The promise of new jobs, exciting boss fights, and powerful gear will inspire you to poke around every corner, and there are no shortage of discoveries to strive for. Octopath's battle systems feel so fresh. It's about what you hit the enemy with rather than how hard the hit lands. And all the while, you are treated to one of the most interesting and effective reimaginings of a retro aesthetic around. The original soundtrack for this game is just a masterpiece.
You know what these are, right?
It will be easy to fire up Code Vein, run around some of the early game areas, and conclude that it's a Dark Souls in anime body. You're not wrong at that, but to appreciate Code Vein, you have to be more open-minded. Code Vein offers an incredible amount of flexibility that ramps up the more you play. You can, of course, just settle on a single build and work your way through the content that way, or you can approach this as a game about amassing a giant box of tools and using them to build whatever character you want whenever you want. You will never feel like you have to make a new character just because you make a wrong build. When you've got this kind of flexibility and variety constantly at your fingertips, suddenly, Souls-like games can be fun even for casuals. Kingdom Hearts isn't that simple game anymore. It isn't just joy and bright colors and Disney heroes. Instead, the conclusion of this story is tangled up in so many conflicting threads. Unfortunately, the story in Kingdom Hearts 3 stretches in so many different directions, with so many different characters and pieces of lore that awkwardly trying to fit the Disney bits into Kingdom Hearts 3, which often feels like a roadblock to something more important. The combat, graphics, and aesthetics are great. The team attack special moves is a fresh addition to the combat, even though in some cases it feels annoying to use it. The game is still good at its own, but needs a lot better punch for the storytelling.
Forgive us.
Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire improves upon the Pillars of Eternity formula in nearly every way, creating an RPG loaded with both strong combat and important character-defining choices that frequently have an impact on your adventures. A refreshingly different island setting makes it feel dramatically distinct, though travel can be a bit tedious because of unavoidable and repetitive nautical encounters. From a long list of quality of life upgrades to an astonishing commitment to immersive storytelling and role-playing, this sequel takes a strong step forward past its predecessor and presents exciting possibilities for the genre going forward.
Open the gate!
The original Final Fantasy XII was a great game that came out at the wrong time, launching on the PS2 distressingly close to the release of the PS3 and Nintendo Wii makes it overlooked and underplayed by many. Those who did stick with it, however, were rewarded with a superb RPG adventure filled with beautiful visuals, an engrossing world, and a unique free-roaming approach to exploration and combat. Now, Final Fantasy XII is back as the Zodiac Age, polished with a better graphics and a host of minor but mostly positive changes, giving players both old and new a second chance to experience the world of Ivalice. Ultimately, Mortal Shell is about venturing into 3 distinct zones in order to collecting items by killing bosses and bring them all back to home base so you can trigger a boss fight. What sets Mortal Shell apart from other Souls-like is the hardening mechanic, which turns your hero to unbreakable stone for the span of one blow. This serves as a block, and it will sometimes stagger enemies when their blades meet your stone skin. The beginning unfortunately gives little hint of what's to come. The game can be a bit confusing and annoying at first, but it quickly becomes more appealing the more you spend your time with it. If you are looking for some fresh Souls-like and unique dark fantasy RPG, this game is definitely for you.
That's madness! I knew it!
Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 4 isn't the ideal point to start the saga. If you want to get the most out of 4, I would suggest playing the previous games first. Saying that, this is a great installment packed with plenty of narrative twists and turns, character development and intense moments. The end of Act 1 is so dramatic it feels like the end of the game. Combat is also the same as in Trails of Cold Steel 3. You fight turn-based party battles using arts and crafts to beat your opponents. Most of all, it just feels like more of the Trails of Cold Steel that we know and love. The more you play Ys 9, the deeper you fell for it. It looks, plays, and sounds similar to Ys 8, but its emphasis on story and new movement abilities like grappling, gliding, and wall running gives it a flavor of its own. Fans of Musou games like Dynasty Warriors will probably find themselves right at home in the moment-to-moment hacking and slashing your way through hordes of enemies. Unlike more serialized RPGs such as Trails of Cold Steel, it's easy to jump into Ys games because the story mostly self-contained. It means that you're not necessarily playing all the previous games just to understand the context of the story. The Court of the Crimson King welcomes all adventurers, new and old. The genre of action RPG has a lot of subgenre variation. But even within that wide spectrum, there's nothing quite like Scarlet Nexus, a game that combines inspirations from fast-paced action games like Devil May Cry with epic JRPGs, the likes of the Persona and Tales of series. It's a surprisingly ambitious undertaking, and perhaps even more surprising is that Scarlet Nexus hits far more often than it misses. It's understandable to take a look at Scarlet Nexus and write it off as just another anime game, but doing so would be a big mistake. The lack of anime variety don't hold up all the way to the end of the combined 40 hours of its dual campaigns, but its combat, story, and characters absolutely do, and make for a surprise breakout hit of 2021.
Paid a heavy price.
Grim Dawn is the first game to come from Create Entertainment, but make no mistake, this isn't some amateur developer team. There's a huge amount of attention that's been paid to giving players control over their characters and creating a genuine sense of cause and effect in the game's decisions. Each of the classes can be mixed to provide a wealth of cross-class opportunities. And unlike other games to do this, there's an incredible amount of support for the various builds through the game's itemization. With cool soundtracks and amazing game's visuals to even further sell the story through the environment, Grim Dawn is one of the easiest action RPGs to recommend in recent years. Refusing to reinvent itself after a 5-year absence, Borderlands 3 sticks to its guns and manages to outdo itself. Refined movement and shooting, a legion of challenging enemies, and the single largest arsenal of mechanically distinct firearms you'll ever see in a video game easily make this the best in a great series of role-playing shooter game. The sheer magnitude and diversity of its arsenal of fun and surprising weaponry is unmatched. and the striking amount of loving detail and variety is what makes Borderlands 3 a high point for the series and the genre as a whole. Hades nails the core elements of the roguelike. Tight combat, meaningful customization, varied abilities that differentiate runs, and interesting progression, all laced with a meaningful story hook. Combat is quick and reactive as you learn how to dismantle enemy shields, avoid traps, and work over bosses. Each of the 6 weapons you can equip pushes you to play differently. Losing the fear of death is important in this game because you're going to do a lot of dying. But trust me, it is all worth it. It's one of the few games where the fact that it will keep changing and growing just makes you want to play it more. I don't see any reason to not playing this game, please just buy it for your own good. Fallout 4 is a massive game with roughly 150 quests, and the world map is arguably about as big as Skyrim. Most of the way this huge role-playing shooter game works is carried over from its excellent predecessors, Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. It iterates on the previous game's already amazing systems, locations to explore, genuinely creepy monsters to fight, and post-nuclear atmosphere that blends unsettling gore and depth with dark comedy. You will also notice a significant improvement on the mechanics, like the movement, gun mechanic, and overall combat system just feels a lot more connected, smooth, and optimized. I assure you, this game has a lot of bang to offer for your money. Mass Effect Legendary Edition is a fan's dream come true. With all 3 games and almost all of their DLC included in one upgraded package, there simply isn't more to be asked. The enhanced visuals are great, the gameplay changes are all for the better, especially in the first game. If you have played them before and have been yearning for a return to the Normandy, then this is exactly what you've been waiting for. If you never experienced the trilogy in its original form, then this is the definitive and ultimate way to do it. Mass Effect Legendary Edition is a fantastic collection of 3 of the best games ever made.
It is one thing to hunt.
I gotta admit, Horizon Zero Dawn seems like another annoying open world game at first. You could probably get overwhelmed by the number of points of interest on the map. However, as you adapted to its gameplay and learned the ins and outs about how everything works together, it eventually became an awesomely rewarding experience that was hard to put down. The most striking aspect about Horizon Zero Dawn is the contrast between the gorgeous wild scenery and the malicious machines that prowl around. This is definitely a highly polished, top-tier open-world RPG games. Genshin Impact and its beautiful world of Teyvat clearly draw inspiration from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But this isn't just some copycat, as Genshin Impact's fantastical world, multiple playable characters, and deep RPG systems are all unique and awesome enough to let it stand on its own 2 feet. The world is loaded with an insane amount of content like hunting collectibles to power up your characters, discovering dungeons and new areas. Not only that, once you start unlocking new characters, each with their own fighting style, abilities, and elemental affinities, the world takes on different shapes as you gain completely new ways of interacting with it. Just be aware of the temptation to pull out your credit card and you will be fine.
Oh dear.
As with the previous Souls games, Dark Souls 3 tells an intriguing submerged story. It's a familiar setup, but it gets you to what really matters in the Souls formula, exploring a giant interesting world and fighting really challenging enemies within it. Dark Souls is a series known for its challenge, and Dark Souls 3 easily tops the series in that regard. Several of the game's bosses are far harder than before, even the regular enemies seems more intimidating and mechanically demanding. With a bleak yet beautiful world that's enthralling to explore and packed with secrets to find, Dark Souls 3 is a powerful journey and the sequel the series truly deserves. The PC port of Persona 4 Golden is excellent. The character model seems to be sharpened up a bit so that they look good on larger PC monitors, and it's possible to play with Japanese voices where the original game only featured an English voice track. Persona 4 Golden is a genuine masterpiece of art and one of those games that show the potential for the video game format to offer more than cheap thrills. Its turn-based combat is fast, fun, fluid, and encourages strategic thinking. The unique narrative sets it apart from other JRPGs and allows it to tell a story that breaks genre conventions. Most importantly, the characters and their unique quirks make for a highly entertaining gameplay experience. Persona 4 Golden is a JRPG classic and a must-own PC game.
What is this place?
The Tales series is known for how well its stories are told, and Arise is no exception. Tales of Arise brings to life a beautiful world, with a story that isn't afraid to tackle heavy subjects and knows when to take its foot off the gas for a bit. Its characters feel real and relatable even in fantastical situations, and a fresh and fun combat system makes it perfect. While Arise maintains the familiar combat setup, actual movement and attacks feel more fluid than before, more like a combination of traditional Tales combat and a heavy action game like Devil May Cry. The world also is bigger than before, that it takes more than 50 hours to exploring all of its regions. For the first time in almost 20 years, the Tales series feels new again.
Too much to handle? Got it!
Nioh is one of those series that rarely seems to get the love it deserves. It takes a familiar action RPG Souls-like formula and layers complexity after complexity onto it. Much like the first game, the plot unfolds with beautiful cutscenes before and after the main missions, and presents a more fantastical take on the major shakers of the Sengoku period. The brilliance of Nioh 2 exists within its multitude of complex systems and mechanics, since the game has absolutely no intention of holding a player's hand. Every weapon already manages to feel distinct in its combos, timing, and overall control, but the associated skill trees further flesh out the options for multiple playstyles with active and passive skills. Nioh 2 inhabits the same space as From Software's Souls franchise, but it is by no means its inferior. It's not every day we have Monster Hunter games that release on PC version. The rush of tracking and hunting giant monsters is kept intact here, complete with the countless quests that you can invest hundreds of hours into. It is just as addictive, and considering the technical improvements on display, feels like a more engaging experience no matter if you're a beginner or veteran. Though its narrative might be simple, its fantastic visuals, cinematic cutscenes, and diverse roster of monsters will definitely hook you into the game. Monster Hunter World is a fantastic action RPG that players can enjoy for hundreds if not thousands of hours due to its sheer amount of quality content to experience. The lore of Nier Automata is unquestionably one of its best features, as it goes very deep and constantly offers up new, interesting details that expand on whatever the players already knows. Every side quest, every key item, and every optional piece of dialogue keep the player invested in this world, as well as keeping them wanting to learn more. And who could talk about Nier Automata without mentioning its gameplay? The fast-paced, flashy action that Platinum Games is known for is fit perfectly into the game, keeping action interesting and exciting. The RPG elements of the games also work brilliantly. Grinding is never really necessary, but fun to partake in should you choose to due to the natural fun of the core gameplay. Nier Automata remains one of the greatest games of this generation, if not of all time.
Lulls you into a calm haze as the world fades.
Divinity Original Sin 2 will always have a strong degree of complexity, regardless of design changes. At a glance, combat is not much different from many CRPGs. Battles are turn-based, with an allotment of action points governing your decisions. But this game differs from its peers by consistently taking terrain and environmental elements into consideration. Definitive or not, console or PC, this is a game that remains true to its inscrutable CRPG roots. Once again, even while we have to gripe about being left in the dark at times, the free-form design makes it all worthwhile. I will accept some confusion and uncertainty if the trade-off is a wonderful boundless fantasy world. It's difficult to ever feel completely satisfied with just one session of playing Skyrim. There's always new pressing quests, new land to discover, new skill to increase, and many more. It's a game that throws you into a finely crafted fictional space packed with content that consistently surprises. The changes made since Oblivion are many, and result in a more focused and sensible style of play where the effects of every decision are easily seen. Featuring the same kind of thrilling freedom of choice the Elder Scrolls series is known for, along with beautiful visuals and a stirring soundtrack, playing Skyrim is a rare kind of intensely personal, deeply rewarding experience and one of the best role-playing games yet produced. Role-playing games don't come better than this. The Witcher 3 is the finest example of an RPG. When it arrived back in 2015, there was no game of the same epic scale as The Witcher 3. Even now, 6 years later, it's still a huge world to explore. The open landscape throws you into a world of magic and combat, led by enticing characters and great acting that will keep you hooked. To add to the mixing pot, there are a variety of magical spells that are essential for tactical attack and defense. And let's not forget additional items including crossbows and bombs that come in handy for certain combat. Just be prepared to sacrifice your normal life because you'll be playing this game for a very long time. Alright boys, I think that's it for today. Some of you might agree and not agree with me, but that is fine because I'm a humble man. Please don't forget to subscribe the channel and like the videos if you like it. Thank you for watching and have a good day. Peace.